Hello, everyone. Can you please take your seats so we can start with the panel on offshore wind? Thank you. So, my name is Vasilis Triantafyllos. I will be your moderator for the next 45 minutes. We have an excellent panel. I'm very happy to be moderating this panel. I'm honored by the invitation, actually, and I would like to thank Spiros, Kostas, and everyone from HAE for inviting me to this great event. And I'm also very happy because we have today with us some of the most knowledgeable people on offshore wind in Greece and Europe in general. So, first of all, Mr. Maurits Kuile, who is the Deputy Head of Mission of the Embassy of the Netherlands in Greece. We have Flora Karathanasi, who is the offshore wind manager, the offshore wind lead of the Hellenic Resources and Hellenic Hydrocarbons and Renewable Resources, whatever. HEREMA is, of course, you all know it, it's the Hydrocarbons Authority, but also is the dedicated offshore wind authority for Greece. And Flora has been with them for quite some time now and is actually the key person there to work on the offshore wind aspirations of Greece. Most of you, I don't even need to introduce Mr. Papastamatiou. He is the CEO of LETAEN, of the Hellenic Wind Association, and one of the key individuals in the wind sector onshore, but also offshore in Greece. Thalia, Valkouma, who is the CEO of Faria Renewables. Faria is a very active renewables company, has international partnerships for onshore and offshore, and is also, Thalia personally was a huge support to the ministry when the ministry was preparing the offshore wind law in Greece and mapping the potential of the Greek Sea. So she really knows Greece's offshore wind sector from inside. And Ioannis Skarakis, who is country manager for Parkwind. Parkwind is for Greece. Parkwind is an international company based in Belgium, very active on the offshore wind sector in many markets with some recent successes. We will get into that. Before we start the discussion, we will have an introductory presentation by our keynote speaker, Maurits. So please, we're eagerly awaiting your points.
Thank you very much for making us part of this conversation here. You're talking about experts. I don't pretend to be an expert. As diplomats, we know a little bit about everything, but nothing about something specific. If you think of the Netherlands, you think, especially if a tourist comes to the Netherlands, you think of tulips, wooden shoes, and windmills. And I think it's very interesting to have that conversation here about wind energy. Of course, in the Netherlands, centuries of experience with wind energy, but initially this was used to reclaim land and to make flour to mill wheat. I also would like to briefly mention that I will report back to our ambassador that we have a very good gender balance in this panel. Just a little note, she will be happy to hear that. But to get to the core, I would like to talk a little bit about energy in the Netherlands, about some of the lessons learned in the transition, and about some of our engagement in Greece, and I will keep this very short. So, to talk about energy in the Netherlands, around 1960, there was a big gas field found in the Netherlands. Actually, the biggest known gas field in the world at that time. With lightning speed that had been developed, about 15 years it took before the whole of the Netherlands, all households were connected to the gas grid, and that was really our source of energy, of wealth, I can say, in the Netherlands. This, of course, was a great blessing. We were able to build our economy on that foundation, especially coming out of the Second World War. But by the turn of the century, some cracks started to appear. Although gas was seen as a clean fuel, it was still a fossil fuel. It's finite. We noticed that the gas started to run out. There were some ideas of importing gas from other savory countries, such as Russia, and become a gas rotunda of Europe. We also noticed that if you pump away a lot of that gas, then suddenly cracks start appearing in the houses that were built on top of it. Little tremors, which were unheard of in the Netherlands, took place in that area. So something had to change. We had to come up with new solutions. Of course, the Netherlands, like Greece, has a great wind potential, and this was one of the things to look at. So in 2007, we have the first offshore wind park in the Netherlands. By now, we have about 2.5 gigawatts of production, and we have serious ambitions in growing the offshore wind potential in the Netherlands to about 21 gigawatts in 2032, and even 70 gigawatts in 2050. So ambitions are there. But the road towards developing this wind potential has not always been so easy, not as easy as the transition we made with gas. And I'd like to mention 3 points. One was, of course, getting in touch with stakeholders. If you think of offshore, just like in Greece again, you have to deal with maritime shipping routes. You have to deal with the cables that are there. You have to deal with the Navy, with national security concerns. You have to deal with ecological considerations. You have to deal with cultural heritage, with the local population that might not like their view of the sea being changed. And so it's very important to engage early on in a conversation with stakeholders to really understand concerns and if you can accommodate them or not, but at least make sure that everybody is heard in that process. I think there we did a reasonable, we made a reasonable effort leading to the production now. What was more difficult was tenders. The preparation of tenders. Our first tender did not yield any results. It turned out that, let's say, the business case was not interesting enough to get a reaction. What we learned there was that you really need to prepare, that you need to work with the context, that you have to prepare with some surveys in advance, and that way you can prepare a proper tender. Then another lesson was you are not working in isolation. And Netherlands, of course, is a very open economy. You have to work with international partners. You have supply chains that are very long, so you cannot do this by yourself. And you also need this cooperation between government and the private sector to make this work. Now let's move on to Greece and why I'm standing here and we as the Netherlands are interested in our cooperation with Greece. If we look back at the days of the financial crisis, we had a very different relationship with Greece. We were having conversations about debt restructuring, about restructuring of the economy. But I can say over the last 5 years especially, that conversation has changed a lot. And now, as an embassy, we are looking for opportunities. And Greece has ample opportunity. And the wind sector is a very interesting sector, also for Dutch companies and also for international cooperation. As I mentioned, this is not something that you can do by yourself as a country. Greece has great wind potential. Greece has a very interesting geographical position and possible connections to international grids. So we'd be happy to cooperate together on that. And we are here and happy to take part in this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maurits, and let me reciprocate the feeling. We're lucky to have you, and we're eager to have that conversation as well. So, I will try to keep this panel very, very tight. This is a warning to my friends and participants. So, I will start off with a question to Flora, Ms. Karathanasi. So, Hellenic. Hellenic was appointed Offshore Wind Authority in the summer of 2022, I think. And since then, you've done some significant progress. You managed to finish the National Offshore Wind Development Program. You managed to also conclude a strategic environmental assessment. The public consultation was closed with overwhelming participation by various stakeholders. A lot of comments were received. Those comments have already been processed by you, and now we're moving towards the final phase, which is the signing of the joint ministerial decision. At the same time, a recent law, a few weeks ago, gave to Hellenic the competence to do something new, to go ahead and actually do the wind measurements and the depth studies and all the studies needed itself, without having to rely on private actors. So those are two very, very important milestones of the last few months. What's next? What are your next steps? What do you plan for the future, both immediate but also long term?
Thank you, Vasilis, for your questions. I would like to start that I'm really honored that Hellenic was invited in this conference, so thank you for that. So going back to your questions, Vasilis, what I'd like to mention with this opportunity is that during the public consultation, we received indeed overwhelming a lot of comments. Actually, it was around 400 comments and opinions from the public authorities and communities. And what we have tried done during these months was to address each comment one by one in order to be sure that everything is addressed properly. And to do so, we conducted internally 3D photorealistic studies to be sure that we have minimum visual impacts from sensitive areas in terms of touristic activities. And we have also conducted studies related to the distribution of noise in order to be sure also that the disturbance concerning the noise level are minimum as possible. So having said that, and moving to the second point that Vasilis raised about the competence that was given to Hellenic with the current legislation, we are working in full speed the last month in order to form this SPV. We are in advanced discussions with our grid TSO, IPTO, and other institutions as well in order to find the best formation of the stakeholders of this special purpose vehicle. We're also into discussions with the global market regarding collecting offshore wind data in terms of wind, meteorological parameters, geophysical parameters, and environmental parameters as well. These are the potential vendors that each interested party from the business will go out and seek for collaboration. So we're also trying to have a better understanding what will be the minimum requirements that will be also approved by the industry. To do so, we have also conducted studies related to the strategy of what is the most efficient way to deliver these works. So with external consultants, we have identified which are the most ideal and proper equipment for our case. We have particularities in the Aegean Sea, especially given that we are close to the shore due to the limitations that we have with the 6 nautical miles in the Aegean Sea. And also we're under discussions with external consultants in order to understand the economics of these projects. These are very expensive projects, we know that. And in order to be proactive and be better prepared for the medium term, Along with the Regulatory Authority of Energy, Waste and Water, we're also looking into studies that will bring us in a better situation to understand the costs of it for each stage of development and the economics in order to be sure that we will deliver in the future projects that will be for the benefit of the society.
Thank you for that. And as you all understand, this is significant work on 3 different tracks. On one hand, you're de-risking the project by taking away a lot of the permitting risk, especially associated with environmental permits and all that. You do the actual measurements, so you're pre-developing the sites, and at the same time, you're doing the financial modeling to see the yield and the possible prices and all that. This is very significant work, and it will be very valuable to prospective investors. But in order to have investors and in order to have actual developers installed in the site and developing the site, we need an intermediate step, according to the law at least, and that's auctions. And with that, I will come to Mr. Papastamatiou, and I would like to hear from you. What's your perspective on how we can have successful auctions in Greece? Part of the discussion going on in Europe today is about how to structure proper tendering procedures for offshore wind. And a lot of questions going into, a lot of discussions is moving around the question of non-price criteria, basically installing pre-qualification criteria that tenderers, prospective tenderers, will have to meet in order to participate. So it won't be just a race to the bottom who can give the lowest price, but there will be a lot of qualitative assessments around who can participate and who can actually win a site. Those criteria vary from the environmental footprint of the technical solution proposed to the ability to deliver the project on budget, on time, and other social concerns having to do with how the developer approaches business at large, if they abide by rules and laws for labor force, for security, cyber security, and all that. We actually have some provisions relating to that in the Greek law, in the article about auctions, and I would like your opinion on how do you position yourself in this whole discussion, or this argument, and then how do you think the Greek state's approach is around this question?
For the question, thank you also for the introduction and the very good words in the beginning. Thank you also the organizers for the invitations. In order to give a fast answer to the very first comment of your, the very first part of your question, I will say that the first prerequisite to have a successful tender is to attract the faster possible potential investors who will be heavily engaged in the development of the projects, and they will gain very fast knowledge of the circumstances and the particularities of each project. So this is, let's say, a message for the public sector to accelerate. And this also gives me the opportunity to underline again that we need to, from the government, to provide to HEREMA sources, financial and human resources, in order to further accelerate the job, the excellent job they have done up to now. And we don't lose any opportunity to pass this message and distribute this necessity. Now, concerning your specific question about the non-price criteria. As a general aspect, we support this approach, and we support this approach not only as Hellenic Wind Association, but also as as a European Wind Association. However, always we need to have some specific points in our minds. Our preference is to have the application of such non-price criteria as a pre-qualification investigation, as some on-off criteria, or as legal obligations which should be, in any case, fulfilled by the bidders and by the winners. I will say an example. Some of such criteria who have been presented in the public debate and also in the official documents of the European Commission are heavily related with the equipment. In order to maximize the flexibility of auctions, I think that we need to follow the approach of the onshore auctions, meaning that a bidder has already developed its project, but it has not made its final decision on the equipment. So with this example, we understand that the authority, HEREMA or RAE, would not be in a position to examine on a specific equipment this criteria. But this should be a legal obligation from the bidder. A second point I would like to make is that we always, especially in terms of transparency and clear and the necessity to have very clear procedures, always support the price criteria. So we need to see, according to our view, the minimum weight on non-price criteria in the tendering process. This is in line with what I told before. Let's put on-off criteria. Let's put pre-qualification criteria. Let's put legal obligation, but let's have the maximum weight on the price. This will be very much appreciated by the market in order to secure the transparency and follow also the successful model of the onshore tenders. Now, a last comment. We need also to have in mind the structure of our economy, I mean of the Greek economy. Of course, having a local supply chain and developing a local supply chain, especially for offshore wind, is very challenging and is very important for our market. Still, a very significant part of all these investments will be imported from abroad. With this profile of our economy and of our productive base, it is in our interest to support the globalization in order to be to position to import the most cheaper and most competitive equipment. So we need to put a lot of importance and to be very careful on issues like cybersecurity, data management, sustainability and innovation, which are components which also relate with our national security. But on the other hand, we need to look always to have the cheaper possible installations with a maximum of core technical standards. And this is also related with the approach to have mainly pre-qualification criteria and not so much non-price qualitative criteria weighted with the price during the auction. These are the 3 comments from our side.
Thank you very much for your answer and for highlighting the difficult but necessary balance we need to strike between having the lowest cost and the maximum value at the same time. Now I will move on to Thalia and ask, I will tap into her international expertise and her international contacts. One of the key challenges for the development of the sector is, and part of its difficulty in kicking it off in any new country, is the requirements, the very heavy requirements it has on infrastructure, and also the very difficult, sometimes even convoluted supply chain. You can't deliver offshore wind projects without ports, without shipyards, without equipment manufacturers being able to keep up with the ambitions and the market needs, without a number of other industries that are necessary for the development of those very complex engineering projects. Faria Renewables has been partnered with DEME Group, a global company involved in the offshore infrastructure. And I would like to see, from your discussions with your partners, but also your experience, what do you see are the necessary infrastructure and supply chain investments that need to happen in Greece in order for us to be able to meet our very ambitious goals, on one hand, And also, if you see a potential there for serving needs outside Greece, because the whole region is actually looking very, very carefully into offshore wind. In the next years, I'm sure we will have many of our neighbors being more active in the sector. Is there export potential for possible investments in those sectors here in Greece?
Thank you, Vasilis. First of all, I would like to say good morning, maybe good afternoon, as we have passed 12 o'clock. And I would like to thank Hellenic Association of Energy and Environment for their invitation, and also congratulate them for the organization of this symposium. I will start saying that I really believe that offshore wind technology has to be a significant part in the energy mix in Greece and, of course, in all the countries, as is the only solution if we really want to achieve energy transition. And this is because by this way, offshore wind technology can serve and support stability of energy systems, and also can act as a base load technology. So it's more than obvious to all of us that offshore wind projects have to be delivered the soonest possible. And in the soonest possible period, we have to have here in Greece, to build here in Greece, operational projects that will inject energy in the grid. There are several prerequisites and standards in order to achieve this thing. And one of these is what exactly Vasilis has mentioned, is related to infrastructure needs and also to supply chain. Adequate infrastructure and high-level one, as well as robust supply chain, financially and sustainably viable, is needed. So we'll mention the several areas that there are a lot of challenges that we are going to face here in Greece, but the positive thing is that those challenges is very good to see them as very high opportunities, not only, as you said, for the Greek area, for the Greek market, but also for neighboring markets, let's say for all of the Mediterranean area. I will start from grid infrastructure, as it was, let's say, the subject nowadays, and as it is also mentioned in previous panels. We really need investments in grid infrastructure, we need upgrades, and we really need additional infrastructure. Right now, we are facing problems without injection of energy from offshore wind projects. So definitely, when those projects will be a reality, grid infrastructure is really needed. Another part is the infrastructure related to ports and also to shipyards. I will start with ports. Greece has a history in shipping market, so also doesn't start from zero regarding ports. What is really needed is to have definitely additional ports and also to have the ability to upgrade and expand the existing ones. We really need more infrastructure in order to make the existing ports viable and able to support construction, support transportation, and also the storage of all these equipment that are needed, both for bottom fixed installation, but also for the offshore floating platforms. Additionally, we have the shipyards. Also, we are not in the 0 point regarding shipyards. There are existing shipyards in Greece, but in order to support all things needed for the construction and operation of offshore wind projects, more are needed, and also we need upgrade and expansion of the existing ones. I will mention one of the needs which is related to the shipyards, which are the vessels. We know that there are hundreds of gigawatts, thousands of gigawatts announced worldwide for offshore wind projects. If we really believe that these are going to be delivered, vessels are needed, and vessels are needed in different periods, are needed also during the investigations, during the researches. They are needed during the construction, during the operation. We will also need them during the commission. So construction of vessels is according to, let's say, what I believe in a very high priority. This is more urgent if we have in mind that the new wind turbines are getting more and more, with their capacity is growing bigger and bigger. So the existing vessels sometimes cannot be used. This is regarding the shipyards. Now I'm coming in relation to what is happening in Greece to the industrial area, let's say the industry related to cement, related to steel, related to cables. We have some very good practices and very good lessons to give to all the other world in Greece. But still, a lot of steps and a lot of additional activities need to be made. For example, we have Hellenic Cables, a Greek company that produces cables and other equipment related to grid, which supports projects all over the world. And also we have some very good and robust steps from other companies related, let's say, to steel and cement. In order to support all the projects needed to be constructed, also this industry has to expand. And I would like also to add that why not to have in Greece manufacturing of the WTGs, of wind turbines. This is also something that would serve not only Greece, but all the area, because we also know that how much is the cost in order to transport, for example, WTGs from the northern part of Europe, or even, let's say, from China. Why not having, let's say, industry here? So in order to achieve all this, we really need some things. We need to start yesterday. Sorry for saying this, that time, we don't have time. We really need to start immediately. We need the very good cooperation from public and private sector, and we really need the support from the government in order to give incentives and to, let's say, to subsidize and also create a very quick legal framework on this. So I really believe that there is potential, but we have to act.
The message very, very well received, and thank you for those comments and those thoughts. Now, coming to Ioannis. Yanni, you're happy, and I would be happy too if my company got a 1.5 giga bid for offshore wind in the latest Norway sector, Norway auction. Parkwind is in many countries, in many markets. You have like a bird's eye view of the sector in all across Europe and the world. We see this, let's say, dilemma. On one hand, we have a lot of projects and a lot of interested investors. We had a very good year in 2023. On the other hand, we see that investors and developers have been much more reluctant during the first half of 2024. There are a lot of complaints about market conditions, about low energy prices, inflation, even supply chain disruptions. What do you see are the main? What do you think are the main risks of developers when they move forward? What makes them reluctant to proceed with a project and to reach FID? And is this like a permanent situation? Will it come and go?
Okay, I think it works now. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for the invitation. And as you mentioned, Vasilis, thank you for making reference to the winning tender of SN2. It was an important milestone for our company. And also, if I may add on top of that, a few weeks ago, we also won another tender in Australia, in the state of Victoria, to build a 1 gigawatt offshore wind project. So things evolving at our end. Now, to come back to your question, maybe if I may start with a positive note, since 2013, the awarded prices for offshore wind started decreasing, and we've seen that in 2013 the price was around 150 euro per megawatt hour, and it went down to approximately to 50-60 euro per megawatt hour in 2021. And the reasons behind that was because of the technological innovation, but also on the foundations, on the turbines. But from 2021 onwards, of course, we start experiencing some challenges in the sector, And if I may name one of those ones, the first thing is, of course, the rise of the commodity prices, the rise of the interest rates, which, of course, had an impact on the cost of capital. Then we've experiencing several issues on the supply chain side, several bottlenecks. At one hand, we see that there are not sufficient production slots to produce the different components at a large scale, like towers, nacelle, or foundations. So there should be important investments to expand those facilities and also increase the production slot. On the other hand, as also Thalia mentioned before, we have experiencing also issues with the market or with the vessels, and not only during construction, but also during O&M. There is such a large pipeline of projects to be built in the future, either installation of foundations or turbines, and there is a deficit on the vessel market. There are not sufficient vessels today to be able to support those developments. And this is not only about the construction phase, this is also in the O&M phase, because we will also require heavy maintenance vessels to conduct the unscheduled and scheduled maintenance, like major component replacement. However, to give also a positive signal on this, we've seen brave initiatives from contractors to make investments on that market. So there are currently 11 vessels under construction, and there will be more to come in the next years. So on top of, and this is also the supply chain bottlenecks, as you can understand, it has also a side effect on the price. So to one side, the limited number of production slots increase the fabrication cost, and also for the vessels, the transportation installation cost goes up as well. And all this adds up on the cost of the project. Another challenge we have been experiencing is that due to the large size of the projects, now we're talking for 1 gigawatt up to 2 gigawatt projects, the grid is not sufficient in some of the markets we're currently looking into. So there should be investments, significant investments, not only to expand the grid, but also to upgrade the existing one. But of course, as you also said, last year was a good year. So the FID, the projects that reached FID were approximately, if I'm not mistaken, 12 gigawatts. We do expect that this will be slightly increased this year, but to be confirmed by the end of this year, of course. Yes, cross fingers. And but in order to meet the ambitious offshore wind targets that has been set by 2030, we need to have an increased FID rate, approximately 18 to 20 gigawatt per year, which is quite challenging. This is more or less that I want to add on this part.
Thank you, and thank you for closing this on a positive note. So we're doing very well as a sector, but not well enough. We really need to pick up the pace. And with that, I'm sure the audience would like to hear much more insights from you, very knowledgeable ladies and gentlemen. But we have to close this panel here. I would like to thank you very, very much for your contributions. And I'm sure we'll meet again in another panel or another discussion on offshore wind. This is one of the hottest topics here in Greece, and it will be even more so in the coming years. So thank you very much, and thank you to the organizers.